to the Jacob Zuma Foundation, who are holding a press briefing at the moment through their spokesperson, Mzwanele Manyi.
Of the National Prosecution Act, Act number 32 of 1998, referred to as the NPA Act. His Excellency President Zuma is advised that in terms of Section 41, subsection 6 of the NPA Act, it is stated there that, I quote, "Notwithstanding any other law, no person shall, without the permission of the National Director or a person authorized in writing by the National Director, disclose to any other person, A, any information which came to his or her knowledge in the performance of his or her functions in terms of this Act or any other law. B, the contents of any book or document or any other item in the possession of the prosecuting authority. Or C, the record of any evidence given at an investigation as contemplated in Section 28. Goes on Section 41, subsection 7 of the NPA Act, is provided that, open quote again, any person who contravenes subsection 6, the one I've just read, shall be guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to a fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 15 years or to both such fine and such imprisonment. Close quote. That's what the law says. His Excellency President Zuma says he first became aware of these contraventions of the National Prosecuting Authority after various reports were prepared and produced by at least 2 independent investigators. The first being an investigation of the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence on the so-called Browse Mole, and the report of an investigation by a Judicial Commission of Inquiry headed by Justice Kampepe. Copies of both documents, which are bulky, will be provided to the investigation team if so required. This criminal interference in the case of President Zuma has not been investigated or reported by any law enforcement agency. Consistent with the pattern of leaks and criminal interference in the recent past, President Zuma learned during the court proceedings in Pietermaritzburg that the advocate Downer SC breached the aforementioned provisions when he unlawfully handed a medical report involving His Excellency President Zuma in an affidavit leaked to a journalist, Karen Mon, and that annexure is attached here. Advocate Downer authorized the leaking of sensitive and private information obtained in the course and scope of his employment in breach of the aforementioned provisions of the NPA Act. His Excellency President Zuma understands that giving or leaking information that is obtained in the course and scope of work is a criminal offense under the NPA Act and punishable by a severe sentence. His Excellency President Zuma therefore report and seek that the criminal case be opened and investigated by the police and law enforcement officers in relation to the conduct of Advocate Downer, Senior Counsel, a Senior Deputy Director of Public Prosecution in the NPA, and he also wishes to extend his complaint of criminal wrongdoing to cover all other persons as reflected in the documents attached. The conduct that President Zuma demands be investigated by the South African Police Service relates to the contravention of Section 41 of the National Prosecuting Authority Act primarily, but extend to other criminal activities, particularly those reflected in the affidavit of Mr. Hofmeyer involving criminal interference in President Zuma's prosecution by foreign spies with the assistance of local investigators and prosecutors. His Excellency President Zuma believes that the interference of foreign spies contravened the law governing our intelligence services and would, in that regard, refer to the report of the JSCI referred to for further guidance. His Excellency President Zuma has no doubt that beyond the criminal conduct involving the leaking of confidential information to persons outside the NPA, the scope of the criminal conduct is far wide, and in the course of a diligent investigation, the SAPS will discover clear evidence of the violation of Section 41 by the prosecutors, investigators, and other persons who are directly or indirectly involved in his case. The specific details of the criminal offences which at this stage His Excellency President Zuma wished to report for criminal investigation and prosecution are as follows. Then he lists the various counts, count 1, and then it gives the detail of what happened. Count 2, he lists another detail. Do you want me to read these counts? No. And then preliminary analysis. Then he goes through the preliminary analysis. Then it goes on, and he makes a point elsewhere that he is fully cognizant of the fact that the criminal conduct which he is reporting also forms part of totally separate and distinct ongoing proceedings in which he has raised a plea in the court sitting in Pietermaritzburg in terms of Section 106 1H of the Criminal Procedure Act. So there must be no confusion. There are two things. There's a Section 106 issue. While Section 106 issue was being dealt with, then this other criminality cropped up along the lines. I'm going to read the last paragraph. His Excellency President Zuma says he's prepared to give further clarifying statement under oath in support of the above, should that be deemed necessary. The criminal violations set out in the attached documents should serve as a useful basis of determining the scope of criminal investigation that the SAPS may conduct in his complaint and the inclusion of further suspects and or accomplices. And then it was signed. So that is the affidavit that His Excellency President Zuma submitted. And as I said, I'm just reading a copy here, but we've got the thing signed. You can have the copy, but if you don't have, if you want it electronically, I'll send it in the group. If you are not in the group, then you must give me your number.
I have one, please. I have one. Oh, not in the WhatsApp group.
Don't take this if you've got a WhatsApp, if you are in the WhatsApp. Okay, sorry. Okay, on my right here is the attorney of His Excellency President Zuma, Mongezi Ntanga. So if there are questions that are maybe too tricky for me, I'm sure he can handle. So once again, people can write their names here. Those that don't have the hard copy, or if you want electronic copy, I'll give it to you. We're very transparent in the President Zuma space, so we've got nothing to hide. Any questions?
Yes.
Just please introduce yourself and then shoot.
My name is Santa Mabaso from Eyewitness News. Mr. Manyi, the former president has always made it clear that the advocate, that is Billy Downer, has an in for him, alleging bias in this regard. Why now? Why today? Why did the former president choose to open the case today? He could have done this back then when he knew that Downer has it in for him. Why today?
These things, there's a place and a time for everything. For instance, in August this year, President Zuma is a very nice person. Unless he's pressed into a corner to do something, he generally is a loving person who would leave people in their things. In August this year, when it became apparent to President Zuma that Billy Downer has now done this other shenanigan of leaking his medical report, he reported the matter to the president. If the president of the country had done something by now, we wouldn't be even here today. But we've been waiting since August. There's not even an update report from the president that this is where I am with the matter. So we're here today because of those kinds of things. So President Zuma has decided that, well, if the president is going to write to me and say I'm investigating, but time, weeks and months are rolling by, nothing happens. So he's forced now to actually report this case himself like this. So that's what happens. Yes, sir.
Mr. Maniko from News from Africa. Just 2 questions really. The first one is, does the foundation have any evidence that point out the collusion, as you allege, between Mr. Downer and the particular journalist, or you're leaving that for the law enforcement agencies to investigate? But also, how is the former president? Should we expect him to be physically present next week in the Pietermaritzburg High Court when judgment is handed down on the case he has brought forward against Mr. Downer?
Yeah, no, look, I think when you read the affidavit, you will see that a statement is being made very clear that Downer himself agreed to this. They agreed that they gave this to the journalist. And if you look at the sequence of events, the chronology of everything, by the time the court opened, some journalists already had this document. In fact, it goes worse. In court, Advocate Mpofu argued there as well that not only did these people leak this information, they even coached the journal to say, don't publish it this time, publish it at a particular time. All of those things are irregular, as it were. So in terms of your next question, whether he'll be there or not, we always hope for the best and all of that. It's a criminal case. President Zuma wants to be there, but it will depend on the health situation at the time. If it allows, like it allowed today, he will be there and all of that. Subject to his health, he is committed to be there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Mani. Thank you, and I'm talking from the SABC. I just wanted to get on Tuesday, Judge Pickford is going to possibly be handing down his judgment in the special plea application, where former president is seeking the recusal of Adv Billy Downer. So the timing of him opening this case against Downer, if the court does rule in his favor, would this not have been a waste of time, or does this go beyond Downer recusing himself? Basically, what action to be taken against Adv Downer?
No, let it be very clear. This is not a preemptive strike or anything of the sort. What we have here is an irregularity. When a crime has been committed, a crime must be reported. As to where it fits in the mire of things that are happening, it's just one of those things. But this is just an independent case. That is a Section 106 case, has got its own issues. This is another case where somebody, in terms of the law, a different section of the law that applies, that says if you are a prosecuting authority, you've got information within you, you have a duty and the responsibility to keep it for yourselves unless there's a court order or any of those things. But you have no right to take protected information and you just give it to journalists and you even coach them afterwards. That on its own is a standalone. So that is wrong. Whether there's a case or no case, it's a standalone wrongness. And it's so serious that it's punishable with a 15-year sentence or a fine or both. So it's quite a serious issue, this. So it's quite a standalone and a serious matter on its own. Okay, follow up.
Just to follow up, Mr. Mani, should the court rule against the former president in the special plea application, could you then use this matter to further delay and rules against the former president? Advocate Billy Downer continues as the lead prosecutor in the matter. Could you then use this case to further delay the matter?
I think you're using the wrong terms. You see, this is the wrong narrative that media tends to use. President Zuma, when he exercises his right, it's like the same thing that happened at the Constitutional Court, where when President Zuma exercises his rights, all of a sudden people lose patience. All of a sudden, even the Constitutional Court it said they will adopt extraordinary procedures and all of that. They said if he had to go to High Court, Supreme Court, it's going to be protracted. And in the process, they trample on President Zuma's rights. It can't be right. President Zuma, when he exercises his rights, he must be allowed words like delay. Then you must blame the system. If the system allows If it does everything legally, it must be allowed. We mustn't have language like delayed and whatever. As long as what President Zuma does is within the law, he must be allowed to do it. Anything else that seeks to circumvent that must be frowned upon, to say it is infringing on his rights, because then basically he must waive his rights purely because he's running away from the word delay. No, we must not have that kind of a dispensation in this country. A person that has got the right to exercise must exercise that right to the fullest. We've got a robust legal system in this country that must be put through its paces, so he must be allowed to do that. Yes, ma'am.
I understood from one case on TV News, Mr. Mani, was still in Krishano Sileka, Zulu, or Lomdabu, Egatenizo went to the past. So, Ababu gets this is
As finishes the one-on-one lay.
okay.
Yeah, so it's a one-on-one. All right.
Okay, just
As yes.
clarification, system of an independent media. Exactly how many charges Mr. Zuma is placed against Mr. Downer?
How many charges, ma'am? There's about 2 or 3 counts or something. 3 counts, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
Okay. All right. Any other question?
Can you name those 3 counts, please?
I wanted to read to you and you didn't want.
Just
They are in your hand. Yeah. I wanted to read them and you all said, no, you are fine. So they are right there in your hands, but those counts. But I think the important thing is a violation of Section 41, subsection 6 and Section 41, subsection 7. Those sections in the NPA Act are very clear that the information that we have, you can't give it away. It's a serious irregularity, and with everything going according to law, he's facing a 15-year sentence. Yeah, it's quite a serious issue. Any other question? Are we done? So ngesizulu ebesizokwenza la besizwe la kulethi qala lokuthi umshushisi omkhulu uBilly Downer uthathe izinto zaka President Zuma ezimayelana nempilo yakhe wazithatha wazinika amaphephandaba. Lokho akukho emthethweni, kuphule umthetho. So President Zuma uzoreporta lokho la emaphoyiseni ukuthi kanjani ukuthi umuntu ungumshushisi osebenzela uhulumeni ekumele ukuthi lo muntu wena oqotho kudlula bonke abanye abantu, kodwa asuke lo muntu athatha izinto zaka President Zuma azinike noma ubani. Lokho ukuphula umthetho, and umthetho uthi lokho kuyajeziswa. Uma lesijeziso singenzeka ngendlela ekubhalwe ngayo emthethweni, lo Billy Downer lo mshishisi omkhulu ubhekene nokuyejele iminyaka ewu-15 noma yi-fine noma konke nje i-fine ne-15 years ejele. So into serious kakhulu emthethweni le eyenzekile.
Mhlawumbe ngingabe ekadinizele namhlanje ngabe konke kube impumelelo.
Akube impumelelo kakhulu makukhona wena kusho ukuthi bekuyimpumelelo. Yeah, yonke into embe kahle, amaphoyisa asamukele kahle kabhala konke. Sesinayo ngisho ne-case number. Sesinayo ne-case number le naye lapha ngoba uyayifuna konke kuhambe kahle bakufakele ku system sokusho ukuthi icala sele registered.